And so while I was going through my own struggle, I was still worried about the people around me and how they were struggling too. And one friend in particular was not only having a mental health problem or challenge, if you will, but they were also having a financial issue come up as well. So I just wanted to help this person pay for a therapy appointment. It was a really simple problem, and I thought it should have a simple solution, but it didn't.
Hello and welcome. I'm Elizabeth Formosa, the founder of Fashion Equipped and devourer of all things fashion, business and mindset. In this podcast, I'm speaking with thought leaders, change makers and entrepreneurs about the business side of fashion and everything in between. Fashion Business Mindset is your front row seat to real stories from designers, brands, entrepreneurs, makers and mentors. We'll discuss how to launch and grow a fashion business and give you insider access to the future of fashion. So let's do this together and ensure that you're equipped to make the fashion business your business. Welcome back to Fashion Business Mindset. Today's episode focuses on an everyday accessible solution that provides the gift of health and wellness services to support those who need it. Now, this is something that can be integrated into any workplace wellness program, and it can be shared with your family, friends, and communities. My inspiring guest today is Nikki Williams, a repeat entrepreneur, marketer, and health and wellness advocate who has recently launched Mentwell, a digital gift card for health and wellness services, where the receiver gets to choose how they redeem it at any service provider Australia-wide. This means GPs, psychologists, all allied health, all alternative and complementary therapies, gyms, yoga and Pilates studios, wellness centres, retreats and more. It's evident that Nikki has a unique ability to use her life experiences as a way of fueling her passion when it comes to her work life. First, music was a coping mechanism to deal with a challenging family situation, so she became a music manager and PR professional. Then she dove headfirst into hospitality as a job, but realised she wanted to help hospitality owners and operators, so she started a successful digital marketing agency for this sector. Then wellness became important during a particularly difficult time during COVID, so she created a kids yoga mat company and started building Mentwell. Now Nikki is on a mission to make wellness the 3.0 of gifting. We've had material gifts like flowers and chocolates. Then we moved into experience-based gifting like hot air balloon rides. And now gifting wellness allows one another to potentially change the lives of those around us. Just 22 weeks after launching Mentwell, Nikki and her team have $5.8 million in sales revenue secured for 2024 and are raising $1.5 million through a virtual crowdfunding campaign in May. Nikki dreams of being able to be a philanthropist as a full-time job, helping to increase the global health and wellness of our communities, in particular those who are less fortunate or disadvantaged. Nikki has continuously used her intuition and curiosity to create businesses, and she's excited to share her journey with Mentwell so far with our community. During our dynamic conversation, we dived into the significant changes taking place in the health and wellbeing space, the power of gifting Mentwell, Australia's first health and wellness gift card, what choosing to align with Mentwell could mean for your business, how embracing discipline rather than motivation can be transformational in each of our lives, and so much more. I absolutely loved this chat with Nikki, and no doubt you will too. So let's dive in. Nikki, welcome to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm very, very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Can't wait to dive in. But before we do, Nikki, I would love for you to set the scene for our audience and just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and share some insights into your journey before launching Mentwell.
Yeah, for sure. So, hi, everyone. I'm very excited about this chat, I must say. And a little bit about me. So, I'm a repeat entrepreneur. I'm a creative type. I'm a marketer, and I'm a mental health enthusiast as well. In terms of before Mentwell, I started my first business as a coping mechanism, would you believe it, when I was going through some of the toughest times in my life in my early 20s. And that was a digital PR and digital marketing company called Milk Bottle Projects. And we primarily still work with actually hospitality and food and beverage clients. And then what I've noticed in my life, I guess, as a theme is that every time I go through a hardship, I tend to try and create a business to counteract that time. And I think that's really at the core of who I am as a person. I try and turn difficult scenarios into positive ones.
I love that. I love how you just kind of summed. I know you've missed a few bits there, but we'll get into that. I'm not going to let you go without sharing the entire journey.
For
But
sure.
I love the way that you've encapsulated that. So let's dive into Mentwell. Let's share with our audience that Mentwell is Australia's first health and wellness gift card. What was the driving force behind this whole digital product and the launch? Let's start there.
Yeah, for sure. So I quite literally had a light bulb moment actually. And that light bulb moment was the fact that during COVID, I went through some of the toughest times in my life, as well as in my early 20s, as I mentioned. Alcohol was a huge part in my life. There was drugs in my life. There was really horrible people and horrible connections, horrible relationships as well. And I've always been a deeply empathetic person, and I didn't know until recently just how empathetic I was. And so while I was going through my own struggle, I was still worried about the people around me and how they were struggling too. And one friend in particular was not only having a mental health problem or challenge, if you will, but they were also having a financial issue come up as well. So I just wanted to help this person pay for a therapy appointment. It was a really simple problem, and I thought it should have a simple solution, but it didn't. So I went on to Google, I searched high and low across the globe, really, and there was nowhere that I could help a friend pay for a therapy appointment simply, easily, and with sensitivity. That was an important part too. And so, yeah, as the entrepreneurial type that I am, I realized I could build it myself.
I love it. I love it. And this has got my attention for so many reasons, but I'll share a personal one. I will often buy a gift card for someone in the health and wellbeing space if I can see they're going through something, whether that is a crisis in the workplace, their personal life. Recently, someone that was going through grief, and I bought them a gift voucher to a breathwork session, Reiki session. It's just, the self-care, the nurturing you need when you're going through a tough time. Sometimes perhaps, the person on the other end is not in the frame of mind to do that for themselves, or they may not have the financial means to do it. So, and of course, in the workplace, myself being in the fashion industry for over 25 years, there's so many people that I have worked with and also experienced myself burnout. So there is this innate kind of desire in me to help those around me in some way, shape, or form. So Mentwell, when it was on my radar, I'm like, oh my gosh, why hasn't this been done to date? But Nikki, you have solved the problem. So let's share with everyone what Mentwell actually does. How can they access it? So let's break it down into what is the digital gift card and how does it work?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So if you, for example, have a Visa or a MasterCard that you store in your phone, in your digital wallet, Mentwell is exactly the same, but it is a gift card, number one. And two, obviously, it's only for health and wellness services. So in order to use a Mentwell gift card, or if you wanted to gift someone a Mentwell gift card, you go onto mentwell.com.au. There's a purchase or a buy now button, for example. You have to put in the receiver's first name, last name, email address, and phone number. And then you have the option to personalize that message as well. So we've given you some prompts in there for different sort of reasons why we think people might be gifting a Mentwell card. So things like having a hard day at the office, things like something at home might be a little bit challenging. Whatever it is, there's really a personalized note there that would work, but you can also type in your own as well. In addition to that, we have the capability for you to gift someone anonymously as well. And I have to share this story. So only a few weeks ago, I received an email from someone saying they received a card anonymously and they would like to know who sent it to them because they want to connect with that person and tell them what they're going through. Now that for me, I cried for a day afterwards. I'm like, that's what Mentwell's about. It's about human connection. It's about bringing people together and actually challenging that stigma a little bit in a sensitive way. So obviously we can't do that for everyone that's going to be gifted a card anonymously, but at this stage of business, we made sure that both parties were okay. Anyway, then on the receiver side, once you receive a Mentwell gift card, you receive a text message and an email. You press on a link and then it goes straight into your digital wallet. So you can then use that card number either when you're booking online for, say, a massage or something like that. They often have online purchase capability, or you can just use it as a tap and go mechanism after your appointment.
Amazing. Amazing. And I love that story. We really never know, like the small acts of kindness that we do, what a profound impact that can have on the other end. So that was lovely that that receiver reached out just to kind of share that journey. And again, it can be life-changing. You know, one assistance of a step forward can be absolutely life-changing. But it seems like, Nikki, you've made the transaction side of things very seamless. So is there anywhere that it can't be used? Because I know it's available across so many modalities. I think we should mention those modalities. But is it like a credit card? So is there any place that would say, oh, we don't accept Mentwell, or is it accepted right across the board?
It's accepted right across the board, Australia-wide, but I have been very careful to make sure that it's only health and wellness service providers. So I might walk you through those three categories that we've put together. And by the way, I've put these categories together based on my own personal lived experience. So a little bit more context here. I actually had a medical phobia from the age of 4. Okay, so I would go to the extent of saying I felt like I was allergic to anything to do with medical or anything to do with even wellness until a couple of years ago. And my life truly transformed as a result of being curious about these service providers and what they could offer me. So I put together this structure as mentioned. So bucket number 1 is called identification. That's GPs, dentists, that's all allied health as well, and all talk therapy. So psychology, psychotherapy, psychiatry, if you will, counseling, etc. The purpose of that bucket is to identify the root of the problem. So not just, okay, I'm feeling tired and why, but actually, is there something that's more going on in your life that could be the reason for being tired for a very, very elongated period of time? Then you move on to bucket number 2, which is called transform. This is the area that I'm personally very excited about. Elizabeth, I think you might be too, going by what you referenced earlier. This is all alternative and complementary based therapies. So Reiki, kinesiology, acupuncture, for example, and 2/3 of Australians are already using these services. It's no longer woo-woo.
Nope.
I thank God. I think we're in a good place now in that respect. The idea being that we're trying to move whatever we have identified into a new place. We're trying to get it out of our body. We're trying to move with that energy, however it makes sense to you. And then the third bucket is to do with maintenance. So once you've moved that energy, have a clearer body and mind, and we want to maintain that. So that's the gym, Pilates, yoga, that's massage, chemists are included in there for the time being, and anything to do with physical movement, wellness centers, sports clubs, etc. too. So you can see that we have quite a wide variety of services, and that's done very purposefully in terms of telling people that education on how to use these services in combination with one another.
I absolutely love that. I love the way that you framed it, because there's a bit of a pathway there to move through the journey. And I do love the transformation piece, because I think a gift card like this gives someone the ability to perhaps explore a modality that they may never have entertained in the past. So I know for a lot of my inner circle, breath work and Reiki, it's kind of new on the scene, but it's become mainstream very, very quickly. And I think COVID kind of fast tracked a lot of dabbling in different modalities. But I think once you've experienced the profound shifts that it can help you make in many ways, shapes and forms, I think that then you're kind of hooked. And once you are hooked on these things, depends on your health cover. Some health covers will, private health cover will cover it, others won't. So a gift card like this really helps someone to explore something new, gain momentum, but then of course on the other side, access all of the mainstream, support that we're certainly used to and have known for many, many years. So I love that diversity. I love the framing, and it gives people kind of options and a place to explore and see what's right for them, based on where they're at in life and what support they need at any given time. So yeah, it's phenomenal what you've created. Let's talk about the results. So what results has Mentwell achieved to date? And I believe without a marketing budget at this point in time.
Yeah, that's really the
hats off to you.
As you can see, I feel like my hair's a bit full today. That's probably as a result of how busy I've been. So long story short, we launched our product 24 weeks ago, and we've already secured $5.8 million worth of sales revenue for 2024. That's through 4 businesses who have chosen to gift to their employees on a regular basis, so a quarterly basis for most of them. And that's usually between $150 to $250. And the reason why I think businesses are finding this so useful is, well, one, EAP services have less than 5% uptake Australia-wide. Why are we still using them as a health and wellness service provider? I don't know.
Could you share with everyone what EAP is? Not everyone may know what EAP is.
So a lot of corporates have essentially a 1-800 number that employees can call if they have something going on at work or at home. And they're called employment assistance programs. Now, the people on the other end of the line are often counselors, for example. They're not necessarily psychologists. And what we're finding in terms of the research we've done for employees is that they don't trust these systems because they're obviously hired by their employer. And they think that the information is going to get back to their employer, which could then be a detriment to maybe their position or the longevity that they have in that job. So by being a third entity and not actually being directly linked to the employer, we've got a little bit of an upper hand there. And surely enough, 2 businesses have already stopped using their EAPs and started using Mentwell cards, which is phenomenal.
Oh, that is phenomenal. That's amazing. And you kind of don't think about these things, that whole privacy piece, but it makes complete sense when you share it in the way that you have, that you would hold back, because you don't know where that information is going to go. But if it's an independent party, then, you are free to seek the support that you need at any given time. So let's not skim over these results though, Nikki. They're pretty profound in such a short period of time. I think we've already covered, the power of the digital product, but let's go a little bit deeper. Why has this got so much attention in such a short period of time?
I think it's a great question. I think it's a really simple solution. And it works with current systems. I think that's the best part about it. There's very little re-education that we need to do for employers or employees in terms of what we're offering. It is a product that already exists in terms of a digital gift card or just gift cards in general, gifting, but it's just for a completely new sector. And it's got a strong tailwind as well because everyone's talking about how big the wellness market is and how important health and wellness is and mental health. So I think the idea has come at the opportunistic time in terms of this is a problem that is very significant for individuals and businesses. For example, 1 in 4 people are currently experiencing a mental health condition, and yet it's costing businesses $39.9 billion a year, right? Something needs to shift. And I personally feel, although I am biased, obviously, that could be a part of that solution.
Yeah, amazing. And no doubt you've already got that momentum. It's happening, and it's only going to go next level. So let's cover those stats again. So cards sold is
around about the 560-ish mark.
Yeah. Your revenue to date?
Revenue to date is around $75,000 in 24 weeks.
And your sales in the pipeline?
Is close to $30.5 million.
$30.5 million, everyone. So who's buying it at the moment?
Yeah, so businesses primarily, although we do say that we are a B2B2C model. So we do have consumers already buying. And again, we haven't had a cent of marketing spend. So this is just people speaking to one another and purchasing, which is great. And then on the B2B side, it's socially conscious businesses. It is businesses who recognize that their current solutions are not fitting for every single employee. And I would also add impact-driven businesses in general who want to be able to give back to their cohort. But these businesses also seem to have a lot to do with charitable gifting as well.
Yeah.
So it's just these businesses that I guess have a little bit extra cash to spend and who truly do care about their employees.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about that B2B kind of relationship. A lot of our audience are very, very passionate about workplace wellness programs. And I know even from my own experience with my clients, there's lots of different kind of frameworks that, businesses approach, and they're kind of customized to their teams and their culture. But this one pretty much works right across the board because you're giving the receiver autonomy to do what they wish on the other side of that. But let's talk about the significant changes that you see happening, Nikki, in B2B health and wellbeing programs.
I'm seeing a lot of informative based businesses come to light. So, for example, the likes of Sonder, they're doing amazing work in terms of educating people about mental health, safety, that sort of thing. However, I'm not seeing that many opportunities for substantial change in the systems that we currently have. So it's great that we have all of this information out there. It's wonderful, but we've got enough information. We need real change. And I feel as if, again, I'll beat my own horn here, like Mentwell is hopefully the start of that, making actual transactional change and making sure that funds for mental health and wellness get into the hands of those that need them the most. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. So let's elaborate on that. How can brands and businesses that are tuning in right now get involved in Mentwell? So let's just say they may have their own workplace wellness program in place, or maybe they don't. They could be a smaller organization that maybe they're doing things ad hoc, but there's nothing formal. So how could they get involved and partner with an organisation such as yours to really either work in with their current workplace wellness program or use it as a starting point to actually gain some momentum and start to support their extended teams?
Sure. So it's really as simple as just jumping on the website. There's an inquiry form there specifically for B2B opportunities. And there's a couple of different ways that we can integrate as well. So as you mentioned, some businesses already have an EAP system. That's fine. You can use Mentwell cards as a gifting mechanism then. And that means that you can either buy them one at a time as you see fit, or we do have a B2B portal launching in about 2 weeks, which will enable HR managers, people experience managers, CEOs, business owners to purchase multiple cards at a time and pick when they're going to be sent for how much. And there'll also be recommendations on times of gifting throughout the year too. So that could be like the 1 year anniversary for someone, for example, or someone who's reached a KPI, something along those lines. So really, you have the opportunity to either bulk purchase these cards and send them out and sort of pre-order them and pre-time them, or you can just buy them one at a time. So as we mentioned earlier, businesses are using them instead of an EAP program, employment assistance program, or people are using them as a gifting mechanism instead of Uber Eats vouchers, instead of JB Hi-Fi vouchers, Bunnings vouchers, etc. Instead of bottles of wine. Please, can we stop giving people bottles of wine? Or alternatively, as a part of a health and wellness benefit program. So there's different uses at the moment, and we're sort of fitting or seeing exactly where we do fit for different types of businesses as we speak.
Is there any sensitivity around this? Because what comes to mind then, look, alcohol has been a big part of our culture, let's face it. And I think during COVID, unfortunately, it even went next level. But if we're talking about industry specific, fashion can be about a lot of events, a lot of entertaining. There's the runway shows, there's the team catch-ups on a Friday night. How could a business start to integrate something like this without maybe disrupting or offending anyone on the receiving end? Is it about those key times of year and perhaps announcing to the team, well, we're going through this phase and it's all about workplace wellness and this is part of how we'd like to support you? Do you have any tips on how businesses could kind of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, sure. I think a really great first place to start is analyzing how much money is being spent on alternative gifting mechanisms. How much
Yeah.
money are you spending as a business on Uber Eats? How much are you spending on these big parties at the end of the year, on the alcohol portion of that as well? And I think it's just worth maybe taking a really good hard look at how much money that is and if it could be spent in a better way, especially in a time when 1 in 4 people are experiencing a mental health challenge.
Yeah,
Really.
I think
It's a
I
good
think
place
it's
to start.
so important. It's about doing more good and less harm, right? So it's about, yeah, where are we spending our time and resources and how can we do better around supporting the amazing people that are around us. Of course, our core team being number one. I'd
Mm.
love to shine the light on you for a little bit and just talk a little bit more about your journey, because I did have the benefit of tuning into a webinar that you did recently where you did openly and honestly share your own personal health journey. So I'd love for you to share with our audience, Nikki, how transformational that was and how important having access to certain services and modalities was for you to be able to, achieve this before and after of your wellness journey.
Yeah, great question. And this is at the crux, I guess, of why I've even built Mentwell. To zoom in on what life was like before Mentwell, I was running a successful business. I was happy, I was cruising, but I kept on entering these really damaging relationships. For one, I was drinking far too much. I was drinking pretty much every second day, if not every day, especially during COVID. There was drugs in my life, as I mentioned, and I wasn't connecting with people properly. I wasn't being vulnerable. I wasn't really being my true self. And after COVID, I took myself away, and I think I was quite lucky in that I naturally had quite a curiosity about myself. Not everyone tends to be able to tap into that really easily, but for me, going away and being alone for an extended period of time, for example, I was in a van for 3 months, then I was in Turkey for a few months, in Europe for another few months, Bali for another 3. Having a significant amount of time alone, I had no option other than to be very curious about myself. And that's where things started triggering for me. I was writing a book all of a sudden. I was writing my entire journey of going, I don't want to be partying anymore. I don't really want alcohol to be in my life anymore. And you know what? Waking up feeling fantastic, there's no better way to live life. There is no better way. And that was one of the key things that I found that did help to transform my journey moving forward. As you said, service providers, health and wellness service providers were a huge part of this journey. So, for example, I'm kind of interested in the energy space in general. I found a psychotherapist in the middle of the Balinese jungle. Pretty weird and wacky. It was a recommendation from a friend. And he had a number of different modalities that he worked within. But for context, he put me on a table, put me into a very deep state of meditation. And I was taken back to a time in my childhood where I had put together this story that was actually not true. So, for context, I have a very broken family and everyone is in the know now, so I can talk about this. But it was that my dad grabbed my mum's arm and that I was the person in the middle of the two of them, more or less trying to peacekeep. And when I went into this therapy session and was put into this meditative state, I actually found out that I was the one who was grabbed. Now, the process of coming out of that appointment and then starting the connection with mum in particular and other family members to explain what I had then experienced was probably one of the most pivotal points throughout my journey, because all of a sudden I could live my true self. all of a sudden I was giving others permission to be vulnerable in terms of telling their story and what they remember from that occasion. And it has really transformed the relationships that I have in my life now. So not only have I replaced drugs, alcohol, not looking after myself, poor relationships with great relationships, therapies, yoga, eating well, but I've also replaced, I guess, or allowed others to see the benefit that I've received. And now they're on their own transformational journeys too, very clearly. So there's this snowball effect. And I think Mentwell is a little bit of an ode to that as well. The idea is for Mentwell to create a snowball effect of health and wellness for one another.
I absolutely love that, because if you didn't go down that path, you could have lived your entire life on a totally different trajectory, right? So, and that's not only helped you to heal, but people around you to heal. So it has this amplification effect. And I think it's also important because sometimes we're living our daily life and we're triggered by so many things. And sometimes we just don't know where that comes from. It's like, and until you do that inner work, as you've said, like it was actually your arm that was grabbed, it's like, okay, well, we don't even know, like, why are we reacting in this way? So there is an element of taking that step forward. Sometimes it's, just an opportunity that's presented. Sometimes it is having the finances to do it, or just having the bravery to do it, or, the support to do it at a given time. But I think Mentwell is providing that opportunity. So for anyone who wants to step into that inner work or a healing journey, or just reach out for support, and who knows where that could take somebody on their life journey.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Elizabeth,
Yeah.
honestly.
I
Yeah.
think you're definitely a testament to that, because, as I said, I had a benefit of hearing your journey a little bit more detail than you shared just now, but I just think it's so profound. And one of the things that you had mentioned when I heard you speak was about also your experience with yoga. And so you, I believe, can be a yoga teacher if you want to be. So you're fully trained. You did the teacher training, but there was something that you mentioned that I loved, which was you went on that journey, and whether you decide to teach yoga in the future or not, it was such a great discipline for you. So you learnt a lot along the way. I actually took that away. I thought, okay, because I've always been interested in, becoming a meditation teacher or a yoga teacher. I'm like, yeah, that'll be another life. That's not for this life. But when I heard you speak about it, I thought, well, it's actually something that you could embark on. It's going to enrich your life, whether you utilize it as I'm going to be a teacher in the future or not. There's something to learn, something to gain. I'm sure there's a community element to it. I'd love for you to share just a little bit about that, Nikki.
Yeah, sure. For context, the first time I did yoga was when I was 12, and we were in a wide-legged forward fold, for those who do know yoga, and the guy in front of me farted in my face. It was my introduction to yoga. Fast forward to 31, and in COVID, I decided, I want to move my body again. Yoga feels like a good opportunity. And surely enough, that's when things just started to move and things started to sort of come to the surface in a bit more of a positive way. I was feeling better about myself in general. And then I decided yoga teacher training would be a good idea, as you mentioned. And it was transformational. Again, another really transformational couple of weeks. You said the community element was a big part of it, and I would definitely agree. So the first class that we had was more or less 30, maybe 40 women. There was one guy in our class. Hi, Ben, if you're listening. We're all sitting together just in a circle, and I bawled my eyes out. No one had even shared a personal story or anything, but it was just this vision of so many women from different walks of life together to witness one another growing. That's really how I took it. And from that moment, I created some of the best relationships and friendships that I've ever really come to be a part of. It was amazing. But you also mentioned discipline. So when you go through a healing journey, I would say that it's very much a feminine leaning process. In the yogic sense, I will say feminine, right? That means that it's emotion based, it is heart, it's felt, it is an unraveling of sorts. However, a big part of yoga is the disciplinary part, which is that you should do it every day, that it is a core part of who you are, and that you can get through difficult things. And I feel like that balance of yoga opening you up to emotionally process, but balanced out with the disciplinary aspect, is what makes yoga almost one of the only holistic practices out there. It balances both sides. Martial arts is really the only other practice out there that fully, I think, does that. So yeah, yoga is at the crux of my life now. I'm up at 4:40 a.m. every morning doing at least an hour to an hour and a half of yoga breath work and meditation as well. And that's one of the core things that I've been able to transpose in my life as well. I think I've sort of replaced alcohol and drugs with yoga, to be very honest.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's not a bad swap, right? It's not a bad swapping one addiction for the other. I know which one I would choose the latter. But I love the discipline side. I think, their discipline can be a little bit of a trigger for people, but especially in the conversations I have in particular on this podcast, discipline comes up time and time again. And I think it's underrated because we talk a lot about motivation and inspiration and passion and purpose. And someone said to me the other day, motivation is BS. Who wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning and wants to jump out of bed feeling, motivated and inspired? No, that's discipline. They've made a decision the night before. This is happening, whether you go to sleep in your activewear or it's sitting out at the end of the bed, whatever it is that allows it to happen. But it is a discipline and it's not easy. But I think when you're in a community and you're accountable to other people, like showing up for, your teacher training or for any community commitments, it is a different dynamic because I know for me, I'm one of these people that will press snooze on the alarm if it's not a trainer that's waiting for me. If it's just me going to the gym or me going for a walk, be like, yeah, no, later or tomorrow, and that may never come. So I love the idea of just being in a community where you are accountable and discipline then becomes consistent because no doubt that helps in other areas of our lives, Nikki, as well. It just filters right through everything that we do.
Absolutely. Preparing for your day, I think, is the best thing you can do in terms of trying to achieve your goals. If you want to be a little bit more complacent in the way that you live life and sort of flow with things, that's wonderful. But I personally think that there's a time and a place for that. And if you are someone who wants to achieve big things and achieve big goals, there are some sacrifices you need to make. I think that's just the way it is. And as a result, you need to set yourself up for success. So you can't work at your optimum level unless you are looking after your body, spirit, and mind. That's very yogic of me, but it's 100% true. So think
Yeah.
about what those pillars mean to you and make sure that your days are actually activated in each of those spaces. Otherwise, burnout's more likely, not achieving your goals is more likely, making sacrifices that then you might regret. So set yourself up for success from the get-go.
Love it. Love it. And of course, Mentwell can support you to do that as well. But what a great message. Absolutely love it. Now, Nikki, there's been so much that you've put into this amazing business, and we have a lot of startups in our audience. We have startups and we have established businesses, but let's talk about your startup journey because essentially you've been a startup in the digital space. How have you embarked on this journey to get to where you are right now? Maybe share some tips with our audience about what's worked for you, what hasn't. I know that you've pitched to investors. There's been the assembly of your team, so much involved. Let's talk about the who and the how.
Who and the how? Okay. Who, I mean, I've been quite intuitive, I would say, in terms of how I've run the business to date. So some people have quite literally dropped into my lap, if I'm being very honest. Our CTO, our Chief Technical Officer, came out of nowhere, was an introduction from a friend. But what I will say is that a lot of these opportunities come to me because of asking the right questions. I literally wear Mentwell. I should be wearing my Mentwell t-shirt to prove that fact, but nonetheless, I speak to everyone about Mentwell. People look at me and they think about Mentwell. And I think by doing that, there is always an opportunity to be found. Everywhere that you go, everyone who you speak with, there is an opportunity. Just look for it and ask for it. That's probably my biggest tip. Right at the start of the journey as well, I spoke to a lot of people in terms of just getting the idea out there. What do you think about a gift card that helps someone pay for therapy? What do you think about a gift card that incorporates all health and wellness, including therapy? So different ways to phrase the question to start thinking about the justification behind the business idea. In addition to that, I would say founders courses and accelerators are fantastic. So the likes of Blackbird, for example, they've got a great course called Giants. Scale investors have one called Empowered, which is an all-women based VC. It's a syndicate. They are spectacular, highly recommend. Microsoft has one as well. Anyway, if you start looking, you'll find that pretty much every VC now has one of these courses, but those two, I will say, are particularly good in my humble experience. And they will set you up for success. They'll walk you through the entire journey in terms of how to start a startup, how to validate it, how to find your first customers, how to find the right staff. So it doesn't really matter your strong points and maybe the points that need a bit of help. You'll be able to find your answers with those groups.
Yeah, love it.
Then I'll go on to finding capital. This is a big one. What I will say first and foremost is you are going to deal with personalities and prepare yourself. That's my biggest piece of advice. And make sure that you're feeling pretty resilient when you start the process. The second thing I would say is, do you actually need funding? Why? Okay. If there is a problem that you currently have, how can you solve it without cash? Because if you start pitching to VCs and investors in particular, and there is a solution to the problem that you currently have that you can do without cash, they'll probably more or less internally laugh at you. So come prepared, really. Also know the investment landscape. So you have VCs, yes, but they're not the only option. There are also independent investors. You can find them on LinkedIn. There are also angel syndicates in pretty much every state around Australia, plus an extra one in Byron. I think there's one in maybe Sunshine Coast or something like that too. So start pitching to them. And then you also have philanthropists as well, who are notoriously difficult to get a hold of, but they do exist. So just know what your options are and then start testing and trialing by sending them pitch decks and applying through their websites.
Did I hear you share a tip about finding the right people on LinkedIn? Yeah, maybe we can share that with everyone.
Sure. Yeah, no problems. LinkedIn is probably the most useful social media platform out there when it comes to especially B2B sales. What would I recommend? There are plenty of businesses out there that do automated LinkedIn outreach. So it's not completely automated. There's still personalization, depending on who you go with, of course, whereby you can put together different kinds of messages, sort of like you would for paid social, for example, in general, testing and trialing, A/B testing, that sort of thing, different messages to get the response that you're looking for. So for example, we set up a number of different funnels designed to do outreach to HR managers, another one to people experience managers, another one to segments such as more media oriented, entertainment oriented, arts, those sorts of organizations, with the HR manager in thought when writing the message, versus someone who works for maybe Origin Energy or a finance company. That's a different message. So I would highly recommend, if you need leads in terms of B2B leads, start at LinkedIn. It's pretty affordable too if you find the right agency, under about $1,500 a month easily.
Love it. Love it. So what I'm hearing is, no doubt you're a master attractor. So as you said, you've put the vibe out there, you've attracted the right people. You said that, you felt that people have fallen into your lap. However, what I'm hearing is there was a solid strategy in place for those people to actually fall into your lap. So I think there's a bit of everything in that ecosystem there. Nikki, how did you deal with rejection? Because as you shared, you're pitching, you're putting your heart and soul into this pitch and you're showing up and you're doing your thing. But as we know, think about the numbers in terms of success and perhaps rejection. There's a lot of rejection along the way. How did you deal with that? You mentioned, you got to show up feeling resilient. How did you brace yourself for what, on any given day could have been a rejection?
Yeah, good call. I feel like yoga is the answer to so many of these questions. There is something about yoga that creates resilience. Sorry, but I just have to state that again. I have also always been under the belief that just because someone says no, it isn't the end of the world. I personally have this underlying belief system that if I can see what I'm trying to do, and I can, I'm a highly, highly visual person. I know what Mentwell is now. I know what it's going to be in 2 years. I know what it's going to be in 5 years, give or take, right? Therefore, there is already a solution to the problem that I currently have. Just because that singular person or that singular organization said no, there's another opportunity around the corner.
Yeah.
Like, think about how many people there are on this planet. For just me to easily say that I have covered all opportunities would be an outright lie. Therefore, it's sort of this balance between probability, if you will, and luck to an extent to kind of go, there is an opportunity there. So let's take funding, for example. I went through all of the different syndicates in each state. I didn't particularly like the people who were a part of the syndicate. So they were usually 50 to 70-year-old white men, if I may say so. I'll plant that seed there. And I decided, well, there's got to be another way. There just simply has to. And so then VCs were a little bit more of an opportunity. So just always asking the question to yourself, where is the next opportunity? What can I even type into Google as a question to find another solution? There's always another way.
I love it. I love it. It's the return on resilience. But knowing what you know about what set you up well for resilience with your yoga training and lots of other learnings in life, why do you think people give up perhaps too soon when they're on a journey like this? Because I see it all the time, and I do feel it's very much, a mindset that people kind of, they're like, nah, they just lose confidence. But as you said, there's a lot of people in this world. 100 no's doesn't mean you're not going to get there. But why do you think it is that people might check out a little bit prematurely?
In a business sense, I think it would be because other things get in the way. People have families, people might have family around them who become sick. Usually there's a very simple reason, I think, in terms of why people do give up. I'm in the fortunate position where I don't have a partner. I don't have a family to look after. As a result, I can make sacrifices in the stage of life where I am, which for me is okay because I believe in this product so significantly.
Yeah.
Really. In terms of, I guess, discipline and maybe giving up something that's really good for you, like a health and wellness sort of idea, I think people give up potentially because the high hasn't been great enough. So we were talking about replacing highs. Like, I've sort of replaced alcohol and drugs with yoga. Meditation for me is one of the most powerful activities that I have ever undertaken. And honestly, the high that you can get, I'm sounding very, very yogi now, but it is true. The high that you can get from meditation if you stick with it, and I'm talking, meditating for an hour a day sort of thing, is the most truly humbling experience that I will have for my entire life. And once you reach that sort of humbleness, if you will, nothing else can replace it. And that has created this solidarity in me to keep going.
Yeah.
Hope it gives you a bit more.
Absolutely love it. So let's talk about your routines. I ask this question to every single guest on the podcast because no doubt your role is dynamic and demanding at times. So let's talk about your rituals, your support systems, and anything that you do, Nikki, to help with your mindset and your well-being that's a non-negotiable for you to help you to operate optimally.
What an awesome question. First and foremost, I chose to not live in a city. I grew up in Melbourne. I lived in New York for a year and a half in my early 20s. And after COVID and after traveling for a year and a half, I realized I needed to be near the water. And in addition to that, I came into Mullumbimby in New South Wales and found I'm a very empathetic person, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm very sensitive just to people's energy and energies of spaces. And everyone here is happy. Everyone smiles to one another. Everyone says hi in the morning. If you try and start a conversation with someone in the street, people don't look at you twice and sort of look at you as if you're crazy. They want to engage. So that was a very purposeful choice. Location, number one. Two was definitely having that routine, as we tapped into a little bit already. So 4:40 a.m. I'm up, I get straight onto my mat. My mat is always ready to go. I don't need to find it and unravel it or anything like that. If I'm feeling poor in the morning or a bit less energized than I'd like to be, I can still roll onto my mat. Okay. And I can start my yoga routine, if you will, on my back, doing very simple stretches, which then gradually gets into something a little bit more strengthening, if you will. Okay. Then I usually do some breath work and a meditation to finish. It's usually an hour to an hour and a half. I work from a co-working space as well because I find that energizes me, being around other people who are creative and who are working on their own project. I eat a pescatarian diet, primarily vegetarian, and I try and start winding down by about 7 o'clock. I don't have a TV in the house. If I'm going to do some kind of entertainment for myself, I'm going to draw, or watercolors is a big one, or read. And then I find that my sleep is fantastic if I make sure that I try and wind down at least an hour, hour and a half before sleep time, which is 8:45. The last thing I'll say is if you are into vitamins, for example, magnesium just before bed does it for me. I find that my sleep is deeper, and I can get up faster in the morning too. So that's that. And then you asked about social networks too. So everyone in the Northern Rivers tends to relate to each other a bit differently to how we do in the city. I mentioned what Mullum is like and how we are kind of very kind to each other, and we inquire, we ask questions. But I'm also part of a mandala, and a mandala is a global movement for essentially the idea of a women's circle. So there's about 8 of us in this circle at the moment. We're all business owners. We all believe in holistic health. We talk about topics such as our period and our cycles. We talk about what someone is trying to burn at that particular time in terms of what is someone dealing with and how can we get around that person to help them be seen and know that they can process what they're going through in a real way, in a deep way as well, and be witness to doing that. So they're just a few examples of how I've kind of crafted my life to be truly happy and
Yeah.
to make sure that I feel supported.
It's a pretty good example of designing your life to meet your ultimate goals, right? Because sometimes we just get swept up in life, where we live, who we work with, and all the things. And the years go on, and it's not until we do face burnout or some kind of crisis that there's this whole reassessment. But I mean, it sounds idyllic. I know that there's a hell of a lot of work going on during the bookends of that day for you. But were you always a morning person, for example? Because, when anyone hears like a 4 in front of the wake up time, it can typically be a bit, that's not me. I could never do a 4 a.m.er. But was that always you?
No, I was nocturnal for the first 28 years of my life.
Wow.
I kind of mentioned I was doing 2-day benders
Yeah.
for a long time. I was working in hospitality while running 1 or 2, maybe even 3 businesses at a time. I hated the morning, to be very honest. It was more likely that I'd be up in the morning because I hadn't slept rather than waking up at 4:40 a.m. to get on a yoga mat. So that was definitely an adjustment. It was again yoga that allowed me to do that, though. It was, as you rightfully said, having that class to go to, or people who are in a community that are reliant on you to an extent, who are looking out for you. That definitely helped. But again, that being overlaid with the high of yoga and feeling so spectacular after practicing and
Yeah.
feeling ready for the day, that becomes so addictive. And you notice it if you don't do it.
Yeah, it becomes the fuel, I guess, doesn't it? It's the fuel for the soul. Where did you live before Mullum? Like, which city were you living in,
I
Nikki?
was in Melbourne.
You're in Melbourne. So good context for everyone. It is
Mhm.
possible. I've always had this, dream of, I'd love to be on the beach in Byron Bay. I love Byron. I love anywhere on the Northern Rivers. It's just the energy is it's pretty transformational when you spend any amount of time there. So I can definitely resonate with what you've shared. But I think the framework that you've set up, your morning routine, obviously where you live, community, the mandala that you've got, I mean, how important, for us all to acknowledge how transformational being in the right community, a community that's in synergy with us can be. And as you said, that's a small circle that you're in at the moment. It doesn't have to be a group of 50 people. It can be, a small group of like-minded women or people that are going to just help you, lift each other to go to the next level in life. So absolutely love it. A lot of gold there for people to take away and perhaps integrate into their own lives. Now,
Thanks.
Nikki, to finish off, I can't believe how quickly the time's gone, but to finish off, what excites you most about the future of Mentwell and the health and wellbeing space?
Oh, again, I need to have a bit of a pretense here and say, again, I'm a deeply empathetic person. I care a lot about humans, okay? The thing that I'm most excited about with Mentwell is the fact that, for example, I might do a bit of a case study here. So I'm working with an investor at the moment who has a charity for homeless women who are experiencing homelessness. And he had the moment of going, hang on a second. So back in the day, anecdotally, he was saying, I couldn't give them cash to pay for fuel. But when fuel cards came out, they were happy to accept a fuel card. If you use that psychology for Mentwell, all of a sudden we can get people experiencing homelessness into the medical system and the wellness system. We can get Aboriginal communities into the wellness system, health system, if they need or want to. We can get people who are suffering from PTSD and every mental health challenge out there into the system to get the service provider assistance that they require. That means that we are not just shifting individuals who are maybe better, luckier, I will say, or who have more resources to live their everyday life into the system and gift it as the new way to gift, but we can get those who are disadvantaged moving up with the ability to operate in the same way that we do if they want to. Okay, because that's how we kind of reach peak optimum, I guess, ability for each individual globally.
Yeah.
It's a really big message, and it's my biggest goal. It's for every person to have access to these cards at all times.
I love it. It's huge. The accessibility, it's there for the taking. Nikki, congratulations to you and to your team and to everyone who's invested in the business so far, because it is truly outstanding and transformational work that you're doing. How can our audience get involved? So there are businesses out there right now that have heard, their ears have pricked up. They're like, we've got to get involved. How can they get involved and where can they find you?
The best place would be our website, www.mentwell.com.au. That's mentwell.com.au. Alternatively, you can find us on Instagram. We're mentwell.au. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm having a lot of conversations with a lot of individuals on my personal profile, so come say hi. In addition, we're on TikTok as well, and we've got a virtual crowdfunding campaign for 1.6 mil coming up in May. So please keep an eye on our newsletter, keep an eye on our socials, and come for the journey, because I think this could be a really, really great business that is not only sustainable from a business model perspective, but it's also giving back. It's the epitome of giving back and showing real empathy and care. So come for the ride, be an investor.
Absolutely love it. We'll put all of those links in the show notes. So, Nikki, thank you for your time. Thank you for generously sharing your journey today and everything about Mentwell. We'll certainly be following the journey, and we are here to support you in any way that we can.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And thanks to all the listeners too. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast. We'd love to keep connected. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Fashion Equipped. Head to our website, fashionequipped.com.au. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with others, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Let's do this together. Let's make the fashion business your business.
This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.